The day Earth joined the Galactic Council should have been a moment of triumph. Instead, it became the day humanity learned just how deeply prejudice could run, even among the stars. I remember standing in that grand chamber, its crystalline walls stretching impossibly high, as our delegation faced the assembled representatives of over 300 spacefaring civilizations. The air was thick with tension, and the universal translators hummed with whispered conversations in 1,000 alien tongues. The humans are too aggressive, they said, too unpredictable, too young. I watched as Ambassador Chen's knuckles turned white as she gripped the podium, maintaining her diplomatic smile even as the HFY representative called Earth a primitive backwater populated by barely evolved primates. That's when I realized they never intended to accept us as equals. This was meant to be our humiliation, our lesson in knowing our place in the cosmic hierarchy. But they didn't understand something fundamental about humanity. We've never been good at knowing our place. The Council gave us an ultimatum: accept status as a protectorate species, surrender control of our military capabilities, and allow the installation of peacekeeping forces in our solar system. They expected gratitude. They expected submission. They got neither. What happened next would be recorded in the archives of 1,000 worlds as the moment everything changed. Ambassador Chen straightened her back, and in that simple motion, I saw the weight of human history. Every underdog who ever fought back, every revolution that reshaped the world, every moment when the impossible became possible through sheer human determination. Honored representatives, she began, her voice carrying through the chamber with quiet strength, you've made a grave miscalculation. You see us as children playing with forces beyond our understanding. But we've faced extinction-level threats before. We've survived ice ages, plagues, and our own destructive nature. We've turned our wars into peace, our divisions into unity, and our dreams into reality. We didn't come here seeking your permission to exist. We came offering friendship. The chamber erupted in outrage, but she continued, each word deliberate and clear. Earth respectfully declines your offer of protection. Instead, we have a counter-proposal. That's when she revealed what humanity had kept hidden, not out of deceit, but out of hope that we wouldn't need it. The holographic display activated, showing the technological achievements we developed in secret, preparing for this very possibility. The council members fell silent as they realized their mistake. They had judged us by their standards, their timeline of development. They hadn't considered that adversity breeds innovation, that challenge fuels progress, that humanity's greatest strength isn't our technology or our resources. It's our resilience. We're not asking for war, Ambassador Chen concluded, but we're not accepting subjugation either. Earth stands ready to join the Galactic Council as equals, or we stand alone. The choice is yours. I'll never forget the look on the HFY representative's face as their complexion shifted through various shades of disbelief. The Council had expected to find a primitive species they could easily control. Instead, they found humanity, complicated, defiant, and far more capable than they'd imagined. As the emergency alarms began blaring through the chamber and the Council scrambled to respond to this unprecedented challenge, I couldn't help but smile. They tried to put humanity in a box, to define us by their limitations. But if there's one thing history has taught us, it's that humans have a habit of breaking boxes. And this was just the beginning of how Earth earned its place among the stars. The council chambers emptied in chaos, but Earth's delegation remained calm. Too calm, some might say. I watched as junior representatives from various species hurried past us, their translator devices creating a cacophony of worried chatter. Through it all, Ambassador Chen stood perfectly still, her tablet displaying a countdown that only our team could see. You see, we hadn't just been preparing technologically. We'd been studying them, all of them. For the past 15 years, since first contact, Earth had maintained a facade of wide-eyed gratitude while quietly analyzing every scrap of information we could gather. We learned their banking systems, their trade routes, their political alliances. More importantly, we learned their weaknesses. The quantum link is active, Lieutenant Sarah whispered, her fingers dancing across her holographic interface. All Earth defense systems are synchronized. I noticed several council security officers shifting nervously, their hands hovering near their weapons. They could sense something was different, but they couldn't quite figure out what. The truth was elegant in its simplicity. While the council had been busy patronizing us, humanity had achieved what they thought impossible. We cracked the code of their most sacred technological advantage. The very translators they used to communicate across species, the neural networks that managed their economies, the quantum gates that made interstellar travel possible. We'd understood them all, not because we were smarter, but because we'd approached the problem differently. They're calling an emergency session, I reported, watching the diplomatic feeds light up across my augmented reality display. The Council's arrogance had left them vulnerable in ways they'd never imagined. Their systems were sophisticated but standardized, designed for efficiency rather than security. They'd never considered that a primitive species might understand them well enough to find their blind spots. Ambassador Chen's smile remained diplomatic, but there was a glint of satisfaction in her eyes as she checked the latest updates. Across the galaxy, Earth's hidden initiatives were awakening. Quantum computers we'd stationed in neutral territories were coming online. Dormant programs were activating in their networks, not to attack. We weren't terrorists or conquerors, but to demonstrate just how vulnerable their supposed superiority really was. The Arcturian Trade Federation is requesting an immediate private audience, Lieutenant Sarah announced, trying to hide her amusement. The Arcturians, our most vocal critics in the Council, had just discovered that their entire automated trading fleet was operating on protocols we could understand and, if necessary, influence. They weren't being threatened. They were being educated. Through my neural link, I accessed the public reaction feeds. Across Council space, the news was spreading. Humanity hadn't just developed comparable technology. We developed it differently. Our solutions weren't copies of their work. They were entirely new approaches that the Council's best minds hadn't considered. The realization was sending shockwaves through their scientific communities. Director, Ambassador Chen said quietly, "Initiate Phase 2. As I activated the second stage of our revelation, I couldn't help but think about that irony. The Council had dismissed us as primitive because we hadn't followed their path of technological evolution. They never considered that taking a different path might lead to different discoveries they'd missed in their rigid adherence to tradition. The holographic displays throughout the chamber suddenly shifted, displaying data that made several Council members gasp. It wasn't a weapon or a threat. It was something far more powerful. It was proof that humanity had found answers to questions they hadn't even thought to ask. And as the Council's most prestigious scientists began pouring through the data we released, I knew we'd achieved something more valuable than acceptance. We'd earned their attention. The next 12 hours in the Council chambers felt like watching a cosmic chess game unfold. Species that had looked down on humanity for decades were now frantically reviewing their positions. The Artemisian delegation, usually so proud with their crystalline bodies and supposedly superior cognitive abilities, were huddled over data tablets, their forms flickering with agitation as they processed what our revelations meant for their carefully ordered view of the universe. What truly shook them wasn't just our technological achievements. It was the realization that we'd done it all while under their constant surveillance. The Council had watched us, studied us, thinking they were the observers and we were the specimens. They never realized we turned their own observation posts into our learning tools. "They're calling for a full assembly vote," Lieutenant Sarah announced, her voice tight with anticipation. "All member species are required to attend." The chamber's ancient crystalline walls began to pulse with a deep, resonant tone, a sound that hadn't been heard in over 3 centuries. The last time this happened was when the Council had to address the threat of the now extinct Nexus swarm. I watched Ambassador Chen's reaction carefully. We prepared for 47 different scenarios, but this wasn't one of them. The full assembly vote was supposedly impossible to call without a unanimous decision from the High Council. Yet here we were, watching history rewrite itself in real time. "They found the quantum signature," one of our analysts whispered urgently. My heart skipped a beat. That was supposed to be impossible to detect, unless they'd started thinking like us, started questioning their own assumptions. The Council races were learning, adapting, faster than we'd anticipated. This wasn't just about humanity proving its worth anymore. We'd inadvertently sparked an intellectual revolution across the galaxy. The chamber's massive doors began opening, admitting representatives we'd only heard about in legends. The eternal architects of Proxima, their energy-based forms contained in ancient mechanical shells. The quantum collective of the Carina Nebula, existing simultaneously in multiple dimensions. Even the mysterious silicon consciousness from the galactic core had sent an envoy, something that hadn't happened in a millennium. Ambassador Chen stood perfectly still as the chamber filled, but I could see her fingers tracing the edge of her tablet, our private signal that something big was coming. Through my neural interface, I monitored the quantum fluctuations in the room. The energy readings were off the charts, unlike anything we'd ever seen during our years of secret observation. Then it happened. The High Council's supreme administrator, a being so ancient that their species had long since evolved past physical form, materialized in the center of the chamber. Their presence was like a gravity well, drawing all attention and light toward them. This wasn't just unprecedented. It was supposed to be impossible. Humanity, the Supreme Administrator's thoughts resonated directly in everyone's consciousness. Transcending the need for translators, you have done something that has not been achieved since the dawn of our civilization. The chamber fell into complete silence. Even the usual background hum of life support systems seemed to hold its breath. I felt the weight of uncounted alien eyes upon our small delegation as the Supreme Administrator's form shifted through colors we had no names for. They were about to say more, but suddenly every quantum sensor in my neural interface exploded with warnings. Something vast was approaching the Council station, something that defied our understanding of physics itself. Ambassador Chen's tablet displayed a single word that made my blood run cold: contingency. We had prepared for everything we could imagine, but right now, confronted with readings that shouldn't be possible, I realized that humanity's greatest test wasn't going to be proving our worth to the Council. It was going to be proving it to whatever was coming. The massive quantum disturbance materialized as a tear in space itself, a phenomenon that shouldn't have been possible within the Council station's defensive shields. Through this cosmic wound emerged something that defied description. A vessel, if you could call it that, composed of what appeared to be folded spacetime itself. Its surface rippled with equations that seemed to write and solve themselves in real time. The Supreme Administrator's form flickered, and for the first time in recorded Council history, they showed what could only be described as fear. The precursors, the thought echoed through every mind in the chamber. They have returned. That's when Ambassador Chen did something that shocked even me. She laughed. Not diplomatically, not nervously, but with genuine amusement. Every alien eye turned to her as she stepped forward, her tablet projecting a complex series of mathematical formulas that perfectly matched those swirling across the surface of the precursor vessel. "We wondered who would notice first," she said, her voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence. "Humanity didn't just discover new technology. We found their archives. All of them." The implications hit the Council members like a physical wave. The precursors weren't returning. They were responding to a call. Our call. Through my neural interface, I accessed the classified files that were now being declassified in real time. Humanity hadn't just been developing technology in isolation. We discovered the precursor artifacts buried beneath the surface of Mars decades ago, long before first contact with the Council. Everything since then had been a carefully orchestrated dance. Your greatest mistake, Ambassador Chen continued, addressing the Council, wasn't underestimating humanity. It was never questioning why the precursors vanished at the height of their civilization. The chamber's quantum sensors were going haywire as more tiers in space-time began appearing, each one bringing another impossible vessel. Lieutenant Sarah's interface was streaming data faster than any normal human could process, but thanks to the neural upgrades we'd reverse-engineered from the precursor artifacts, we could understand it all. The Council hadn't built their civilization. They'd inherited it, found it abandoned, and assumed they'd figured it all out, but they'd never asked the right questions. The precursors didn't vanish. I found myself explaining as the pieces finally fell into place publicly. They evolved. They didn't need spaceships or stations or physical forms anymore. They transcended, but they left behind guardians, waiting for a species that would understand their legacy differently. The Supreme Administrator's form stabilized, their consciousness reaching out to confirm what we were saying. In that moment, through the quantum network that connected all present, every species in the Council felt the truth. The precursors hadn't chosen humanity because we were special or superior. They'd chosen us because we were different. We looked at their technology and saw not just tools, but questions. Not just answers, but possibilities. Ambassador Chen raised her hand, and every precursor vessel responded in perfect synchronization, their surfaces now displaying the complete mathematical proof of what humanity had discovered. We hadn't just found their technology, we found their purpose. The Council had spent millennia building an empire on the foundations of precursor technology. We had spent decades understanding why that technology was left behind. As the chamber erupted in a chaos of reactions, I noticed something strange happening to the quantum field surrounding us. The precursor vessels weren't just here for show. They were changing something fundamental about space itself. And as my neural interface struggled to process the readings, I realized this wasn't just about proving humanity's worth anymore. This was about why the precursors had waited so long to be found. The Supreme Administrator's consciousness brushed against ours, no longer as a superior being, but as an equal seeking understanding. In that moment, every piece of the cosmic puzzle clicked into place. The precursor vessels weren't weapons or ships. They were keys, and humanity had just unlocked something that had been waiting since the dawn of civilization itself. "Show them," Ambassador Chen commanded, her voice steady despite the enormous pressure of the moment. Lieutenant Sarah activated our final protocol, and suddenly the quantum field surrounding the Council station began to resonate with a frequency that made reality itself vibrate. The mathematical equations swirling across the precursor vessels weren't just symbols. They were a language, one that spoke directly to the fabric of space-time. The Council members watched in awe as their supposedly superior technology began to transform. The crystalline walls of the chamber, the neural networks, even their precious quantum gates, all of it was just the surface layer of something far more profound. The precursors hadn't abandoned their technology. They'd hidden its true purpose within it, waiting for a species that would see beyond the obvious. "Your civilizations built empires," I explained, watching as understanding dawned across 1,000 alien faces. "You created hierarchies, rules, and boundaries. You looked at the precursor technology and saw power. But humanity, we looked at it and saw poetry. We didn't just learn how to use it. We learned how to sing with it." The quantum field's resonance reached a crescendo, and suddenly every piece of technology in the galaxy began harmonizing with the precursor vessels. The Council's entire civilization had been built on technology they thought they understood, but in reality, they'd been living inside an instrument that had been waiting millennia to be played. Ambassador Chen stepped forward, her tablet now projecting a single, elegant equation that made several Council scientists gasp in recognition. "The precursors didn't leave because they transcended physical form," she revealed. "They left because they discovered something so fundamental about reality that it changed everything. They realized the universe isn't just alive, it's conscious. And all of this." She gestured to the transforming technology around us. "This was never about power or control. It was about harmony." The Supreme Administrator's form pulsed with newfound understanding. The precursor vessels weren't here to judge or destroy. They were here to complete a symphony that had begun at the dawn of time. Humanity hadn't been chosen because we were special. We'd been chosen because we were the first species to stop trying to master the universe and instead learned to listen to it. As the quantum resonance reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The boundaries between species, between technology and nature, between consciousness and reality, all began to blur, not in a way that erased our differences, but in a way that revealed how those differences created something greater than the sum of its parts. "This," Ambassador Chen declared, "is Earth's real retaliation against your prejudice. Not with weapons or threats, but with understanding. You tried to put humanity in our place, and we're showing you that everyone's place is everywhere, and nowhere, at once." the chamber filled with a light that wasn't really light, and a sound that wasn't really sound. The precursor vessels began to phase into another dimension, but this time they weren't leaving. They were inviting us all to follow, to explore what lay beyond the boundaries of what we thought was possible. But as the council members rushed to embrace this new reality, my neural interface detected something that made my heart stop. In the quantum harmonics, buried beneath layers of universal consciousness, was a pattern that suggested this entire sequence of events, from humanity's discovery to this very moment, might not have been as unplanned as we thought. And in that realization lay the greatest mystery of all, whose retaliation was this, really? In the days that followed, the galaxy transformed in ways none of us could have predicted. The council chambers, once a symbol of hierarchy and power, became a hub of collaboration and discovery. Species that had once looked down on humanity now sought our perspective, not because we had superior technology, but because we saw the universe through different eyes. Lieutenant Sarah's neural interface had recorded everything, and as we reviewed the data, we began to understand the true scope of what had happened. The precursor vessels hadn't just revealed the conscious nature of the universe. They had shown us that consciousness itself was a technology we had barely begun to understand. Every species had been playing different instruments in an orchestra they couldn't hear, and humanity had simply been the first to recognize the music. We should have known, Ambassador Chen mused during our final briefing before returning to Earth. All those years studying their artifacts, we thought we were learning their secrets, but really we were learning our own. She was right. The precursors hadn't left behind technology for us to find. They had left behind mirrors, showing each species their own potential reflected back at them. The quantum harmony that now connected all council species didn't erase our differences or create a hive mind. Instead, it created something far more beautiful, a network of unique perspectives, each contributing its own note to the universal symphony. The Artemisians' crystalline minds found new resonance with the silicon consciousness. The energy beings of Proxima discovered they could dance with the quantum collective in ways that defied traditional physics. But that pattern I detected in the quantum harmonics still haunted me. During a quiet moment, as we prepared our ship for the journey home, I finally shared my discovery with Ambassador Chen. Her response surprised me. "Of course it was planned," she said, smiling in that knowing way that had become famous across the galaxy. "But not by the precursors, and not by us. The universe itself has been orchestrating this moment since the first stars ignited. We didn't retaliate against the Council. We simply helped everyone hear the music that was already playing." As our ship broke orbit from the Council station, I watched through the quantum field as thousands of species began their own journeys of discovery. The hierarchies and prejudices that had defined galactic society for millennia were dissolving, replaced by a new understanding that diversity wasn't just beneficial, it was essential for the universe to know itself. Earth had changed too. Our cities now pulsed with the same quantum harmony that connected all conscious beings. But we hadn't lost our humanity in the process. We finally understood what it truly meant. We weren't just a young species that had proved itself worthy of the stars. We were part of something far greater, a cosmic dance that had been waiting for all of us to join in. As we approached the quantum gate that would take us home, I asked Ambassador Chen one final question that had been bothering me since that day in the council chambers. Did we really retaliate against their prejudice, or did we just fulfill our part in the universe's plan? She looked out at the star-filled expanse, where precursor vessels still danced between dimensions, inviting all species to explore the infinite possibilities they had once discovered. "Maybe," she said, "the greatest retaliation against prejudice is showing others that their limitations never really existed in the first place." And as we jumped through the quantum gate, I realized she was right. In the end, Earth's fierce retaliation hadn't been fierce at all. It had been a gesture of understanding, a hand extended across the cosmos, inviting everyone to dance to the music that had always been there, waiting for someone to simply stop and listen.